That's Greg Powers, and this is This Week
in Cruton.
It's Greg Powers, the Next Level Athlete. Follow him on Twitter at GPowerScout. Follow Next Level Athlete on Twitter at Next Level D1. Powers, how you holding up?
Great. How are you guys doing?
Can't complain. I mean, I can, but what good would it do? So
Not good.
We're just chugging along. But I'll tell you that even with a global pandemic going on, and even with kind of a new dead period, or at least a kind of a pause in the recruiting world, sure seems like there's a lot going on.
Thank goodness for recruiting, because it gives us football fans something to pay attention to every day.
Absolutely. Well, we'll start. Of course, your piece up on TexasFootball.com is This Week in Recruiting. A lot to get to. We will start with our prospect on the rise. Our prospect on the rise is we're going to Highland Park, the Dallas area. 2021 linebacker Patrick Turner has added a handful of new offers: an in-state offer from UTSA, another FBS offer from Navy, as well as a pair of big-time FCS offers in Furman and Penn. This was a guy that I know you saw at the Next Level Athlete Top 100 showcase in Dallas, and you came away pretty impressed.
Well, I'm thankful that recruiting is really starting to take off for Patrick Turner, because he's a student athlete who really deserves it. He's put up numbers and had really big games on the field the past 2 seasons at Highland Park, but his recruitment isn't one of those that really spiked at an early age. He's one who had to continue to work hard and bide his time to earn each and every one of these offers. So when that happens, you're really happy to see some of that hard work start to pay off for student athletes like this, because he is a well-rounded player, and in the classroom, he's well-rounded as well, as you can tell by these Ivy League offers. He's a big frame linebacker who had to prove that he could move and run, and he did that at the Next Level Athlete Camp. You can see him going through these drills, and he's very nimble for a guy who's up in that 220, 230-pound range. He can take the thumping in the middle of the field against ball carriers, and he can pursue pretty well for being a bigger frame linebacker. So great to see things happening for Patrick Turner.
Is it fair to say that he definitely profiles as kind of an inside guy? It seems like with his frame, he would be a guy that you would probably put more on the inside, right?
Yeah, I love the way he reads through traffic. He uses his hands extremely well to get off of blocks, and he has that frame that can take a pounding. He's also one of the best two-sport athletes in the entire state, because he's a tremendous baseball player. He has P5 offers in baseball, so he's going to have a decision to make at some point down the road what sport, or if he wants to play 2 sports once he arrives on the college scene.
Let's move on to our commit of the week. We're heading down to Houston. It was really big news, obviously, when Ed Oliver stayed home to play at the University of Houston. Of course, a big-time prospect deciding to stay at the University of Houston. That was a big deal. I'm certainly not going to compare Clear Lake 2021 cornerback Mark Wilson to Ed Oliver. I think that's probably a little bit over the top. But what I will say is it kind of feels like that same thing, where this is a big-time defender. This is a big-time prospect in the state in the class of 2021. But Clear Lake 2021 cornerback Mark Wilson is staying home. He's committed to the Cougs. And this feels like a really big get for Dana Holgerson.
It really is. And what better way to start off your recruiting class than securing a Houston area kid to be commit number 1 and get the ball rolling on what's going to probably be a decent class for the Cougars. You can't compare him to Ed Oliver, but Mark Wilson is a stud. He's a guy at 6 foot, 6'1", 170 pounds, who plays safety for that Clear Lake team, that has shown that he loves to come downhill and be a solid tackler. He can defend the pass. I kind of like his most upside as a cornerback at the next level, even though he's played safety the last couple seasons at Clear Lake. He's the guy that they need to put in the middle of their defense to pursue the football, most commonly on Friday night. But you can see what he brings to the table with his agility, athleticism, and speed in the return game. And you saw that on the first few clips of his highlight reel as I've been talking about his skill set. He's a guy who has that little bit of edge too. You know, he's a guy who loves to man up one-on-one if he gets that situation. And he's shown some of that one-on-one ability at times on tape when he's been able to defend the slot wide receivers who are generally quicker and faster type of players.
We're talking with Greg Powers, an excellent athlete here in the Texas Football Today, This Week in Recruiting. Get involved in the conversation, hashtag TF Today. Mark Wilson, a huge get for Dana Holgerson. This feels like a class maker there from the jump, and I feel like a really, really good job of making sure that he stays at home. We're going to move to our underclassmen of the week. Our underclassmen of the week, back up to the DFW Metroplex, Frisco Liberty 2022 wide receiver Evan Stewart. Starting to get hot. He's already coming into this. He already had offers from places like Baylor, North Texas, Kansas, and Hawaii. This week, he picked up a trio, four big offers: Texas, Auburn, Florida, Oklahoma. Another guy that you came away really impressed with at the Next Level Athlete Texas Top 100 Showcase in Dallas. Seems like Frisco Liberty 2022 wide receiver Evan Stewart starting to take off.
Well, you could say that his recruitment went national this week. Texas got the ball rolling on that with a big in-state offer, and then you saw a couple of big-time SEC programs come in, and then cap it off with an offer from Oklahoma, which has been in the college football playoffs over the last couple of seasons. So you're looking at a list now for Evan Stewart that includes some of the best schools in the country. I think he's up to around 10 offers right now, but he's one of those guys now that he's rated 4 stars nationally by 24/7 Sports and starting to get some shine from the national media on his offer list that will really explode. And I think that you'll see some more major programs come calling for Evan Stewart. He's probably going to remind some folks in Frisco of Marvin Mims because he's in that 6 foot, 160-pound range, and he's a mismatch nightmare. He can move across the field into different formations and provide a mismatch, whether he's in the slot or matched up on the outside with the corner and one-on-one situations. So he's going to be a huge weapon for Frisco Liberty, who looks to really probably kind of change their team around with a recruit like him on its roster.
Yeah, this is a team in Frisco Liberty that obviously struggled last year, just 1-9. But, you know, this was a really young team last year. It sounds like they're going to have a ton of starters back. Evan Stewart, 52 catches, 820 yards, and 7 touchdowns last year on a team that you know, struggled a little bit. And I think when you put up those kinds of numbers, you know, especially for a team that maybe isn't putting it together in the win column, that strikes me as even more impressive, that he found a way to shine even though his team struggled a little bit.
Certainly, and if they can put together a solid run game to go with him at receiver, I think that they're going to be able to score some points and be able to compete with more teams within their own district, certainly.
Finally, let's wrap it up with our recruit of the week. Our recruit of the week is Dallas Skyline wide receiver QuayDarius Davis. You can just call him Quay. But he is the number 11 prospect in Dave Cable's Texas Football's 2021 rankings. You can find it at texasfootball.com/recruiting. He's a former Texas commit. He's named his top 6. His top 6: SMU, Texas, Florida, LSU, Oklahoma State, and USC. That removes teams like Alabama and Texas A&M, adding in LSU, Oklahoma State, and SMU. And you kind of mentioned in your piece on TexasFootball.com that there's reason to believe that SMU may have a bit of an inside track on the number 11 prospect in the state of Texas.
Yeah, he has a great relationship with former Dallas Skyline wide receiver Rashad Samples, the son of Reginald Samples, who's the head coach at Duncanville, who's one of the state's best up-and-coming recruiters and college football coaches. He's a young football coach who's made his mark at Texas before moving on to SMU. So Rashad Samples is definitely a coach that you should be paying attention to on the recruiting trail. But let's get to QuayDarius Davis. I mean, this is a guy who I've had a whole lot of fun covering his recruitment so far. He was a one-time Texas commitment who released the top 5 back in December, has already edited that top 5 now into a top 6 and changed some schools on that list. He's also very confident in his skill set, not really afraid to tell it like it is. And those are the recruits who I really like to follow because he's not holding a lot back. He likes to keep you informed of the process. And, you know, sometimes recruiting can be a process that's hard to keep up with. It's hard to keep up with for young gentlemen who are going through it because the interest from some schools can ebb and flow at times. It's a process that can be filled with anxiety because you have top programs who really want you on their team and they put that full court press on you. Well, QuayDarius Davis is the type of kid who has the attitude that he can handle that type of pressure because he likes to be honest about what's going on. And as someone who follows recruiting very closely, that can be a breath of fresh air. So I really like following QuayDarius Davis, and certainly there'll be some more updates along the way as he comes down the wire to make a decision on which top program will get his signature. One school I am paying attention to on that list is LSU. That seems to be an offer that he was really interested in at the time it was made. I think that he would fit into that offense really well. And it's in the SEC, which has had some teams come and go from his list. I know he was at one time committed to Texas, so he was committed to a Big 12 school. But the LSU Tigers coming off of that national championship, I think, is a team that you should pay attention to for right now.
Greg Powers, the next level athlete. One last question for you, and this is a question both for the audience because I think there's some interest in this, but also for me as your editor at Dave Campbell's Texas Football, which is you put together the super team for the Dave Campbell's Texas Football. You also put together the top 300. I'm interested, and I think people may be interested. Where are you in this process right now? Your deadline, you didn't bust deadline, you're fine. But as far as the process of narrowing all those things down, where would you say you are in the process?
We have 23 days left before deadline. As a matter of fact, I do have it on my calendar. I know exactly where we're at with turning in the content for the magazine, just to keep everybody in the loop. First team, super team is actually knocked out. So as a team at Next Level Athlete, we really work hard to make sure that we get that hammered out early. We have an idea of how we attack that process every year. And now after we cement the first team, we go on to the second and third teams, which also appear in the magazine. And I have to tell you, the position that was the toughest to pick for the super team this year is undoubtedly the quarterback position, because you really have a grouping of about 10 quarterbacks in the state this year who deserve mention. And there are 4 or 5 of them who were seriously considered for that first spot on the super team. So that is a hotly contested group this year. And I can give you maybe some players to keep an eye on that could finish in that running. And they are Caden Salter, Cedar Hill, Demetrius Davis, North Shore, Garrett Nussmeyer, Flower Mound Marcus, Baron Morton, Eastland, and you can just keep rattling a few more of these names off because those aren't the only guys who are under consideration. Which one of them gets named to the first team? That's a matter of opinion. I mean, you could even go into the private school ranks and talk about SMU commit Preston Stone. I don't know if a private school quarterback has ever been named to the first team before, but he's certainly a player who deserves mention when you're talking about the top quarterback.
He is Greg Powers of Next Level Athlete. Follow him on Twitter at GPowerScout. Follow Next Level Athlete on Twitter at Next Level D1. Powers, stay safe. Wash your hands. I'm digging the facial hair, buddy. And we'll do this again next week.
Let's do it.